Mary Poppins Returns is the long-awaited sequel to Walt Disney's classic 1964 musical adventure Mary Poppins, and stars Emily Blunt as the iconic title character alongside Lin-Manuel Miranda, Ben Wishaw, Emily Mortimer, and Colin Firth. The original Mary Poppins is one of my favourite films of all time and has been since childhood. It's not only the crown jewel of Walt Disney's own live-action features, but one of cinema's most iconic and beloved musicals. So getting to revisit this world for new adventures was something I was incredibly excited about. In fact, this was quite easily my most anticipated Disney movie for 2018. So, to review Mary Poppins Returns is somewhat difficult for me. I feel that I need to split my discussion into topics and touch on how some of the more iconic ingredients of the original movie translate into the new one, and by doing so, find a way to judge the movie based on its own merits and possibly on how well it stands as its own individual piece of cinema. Firstly, let's talk about story. Mary Poppins Returns is set somewhere around 25 years after the first, which is a brilliant move in my opinion, keeping a somewhat old world charm within the bloodline of the film. Bringing Mary Poppins into the modern age, I think, simply would not have worked. It would have lost a lot of the magic of what made the first movie so special. Set during the Great Depression, Michael Banks has fallen on hard times. His wife has passed away not long before the movie begins. His family life is in a jumble, having to rely on his sister Jane to help him look after his kids, and he is facing the possibility of losing his home to the Fidelity Fiduciary Bank. Right on cue, Mary Poppins once again flies into the lives of the Banks children to help at their most needful hour. It is a formula that worked in this year's Christopher Robin, and darn it if it doesn't work again for this year's Mary Poppins. When the original Mary Poppins was released in the 1960s, the movie was a revelation, and its story was fairly fresh and groundbreaking, despite being based on a series of P.L. Travers novels. Mary Poppins Returns, on the other hand, is a fairly more recognisable movie. It's one that doesn't reinvent the wheel or even really try to. This is a movie that doesn't really make any attempts to be new or original, and instead relies on paying respectful homage to Walt Disney's picture by trying to create a journey that feels at home and be an extension of it by pretty much following it beat by beat. The structure of the original movie is incredibly jumpy, going from set piece to set piece, slowly evolving the movie's simple yet layered narrative one song at a time. The new movie somewhat follows this same formula as we travel from place to place and song to song, not only paying homage to the original movie, but to the layout of the original P.L. Travers novels, which were even more so anthological. The only difference here is that while the structure of Mary Poppins Returns doesn't exactly feel confusing or irritating, it does feel fairly dated. This is something that cinema goers 50 years ago were fairly used to and happy with, but I'm not too sure it's one that holds up all that well today, given that people, and especially children nowadays, seem to have smaller attention spans. However, the fact that this is a Mary Poppins movie makes the use of this kind of formula a completely reasonable choice, and I think that if it had chosen to go about telling its story in any other way, we would have all been fairly disappointed. This sequel manages to capture the spirit and movement of the original in its story structure, and for that I am incredibly thankful. Though on a more somewhat negative note, I do feel that the plot was perhaps a little more thin than that of the original, but I still thought it embraced the right amount of simple charm and entertainment required, and thought it brought a brilliant character arc to Michael Banks, who is really the main character this time around, where his father was in the first. The story makes many throwbacks to the original and perfectly manages to tie loose ends and bring multiple circle of life moments to the party, some of which we never really thought that we needed, but now realize we always did. Overall, while quite formulaic and predictable, Mary Poppins Returns plays out perfectly, and while it doesn't try very hard to be different, it never should have in the first place. Of course, songs are an enormous part of the original movie, and we have an enormous number of them in this one too, but are they any good? Well, if you know me well enough, you know that I'm not huge on musicals. It takes a very special musical to win me over, one that has charm, great story, and brilliant songwriting. The original Mary Poppins embraced all of that with an abnormal number of spectacular songs from the iconic Sherman Brothers. The music in Mary Poppins Returns is likewise beautifully charming, incredibly whimsical, toe-tappingly fun, and at times an absolute blast. However, very few of them manage to reach the heights of the songs from the original, though some do get very, very close. I mean, this was definitely a given going into this one, and the thing I was most skeptical about. The work of the Shermans in the 1960s was pure lightning in a bottle, and it's something that's almost impossible to replicate. A fair number of the songs in Mary Poppins Returns are really great, and do feel right at home alongside those of the original movie, pulling all kinds of musical and lyrical references and nostalgic callbacks. However, I am unsure that any of them will go on to be anywhere near as iconic as those of the Shermans. Other songs, however, certainly will not, with a good 2 or 3 numbers that I feel just fell pretty flat for me. Regardless, Mary Poppins Returns features a great soundtrack and a beautiful score that do their job at reminding us that this is a Mary Poppins feature. They make us smile, they make us laugh, and overall make us happy to be back in this world. I'm happy to say that this is a musical that I really loved. Next, we need to talk about the performances. First and foremost, Emily Blunt is outstanding in the role of Mary Poppins. She does a great job at treading the line between impression and homage, and never once seems to cross it. Her delivery is so natural and magical that it feels that it grows organically from where Julie Andrews left her performance and blossoms into its own thing, while staying true and respectful to what did come before. Blunt shows us absolutely the same Poppins we knew before. She has the same charm and grace, the same wit, and the same wicked streak. This is a role that must be almost near impossible to play, and I'm happy to say that Blunt pulled it off perfectly. She is far and away the best thing about this movie. Her singing in this is also commendable. Blunt is obviously not as strong and powerful with vocals as Andrews, but she keeps in the same spirit and delivers them with as much bravo and elegance. Lin-Manuel Miranda is great in this too, and while his character really is just a fill-in and almost straight replication of Dick Van Dyke's Bert, he does make it his own and gives it a new flavour. It's a welcome character and one that adds the extra dash of nostalgia and familiarity. Ben Whishaw and Emily Mortimer are also fantastic and are overly believable as the grown-up Banks children. Wishaw in particular delivers possibly his best performance ever and gives it his absolute heart and soul. Next to Blunt, he is the heart and soul of the movie. The animation is also something a lot of people have been asking me about. As we all know by now, there is a 20 or so minute sequence of traditional animation in the movie as a great throwback to the original film and displays the first hand-drawn animation from Disney in a theatrical film for 7 years. Many Disney animators even came out of retirement to work on this segment, and I'm so glad to say that it is incredible! It's so in style with the original movie and embraces the animation style of Disney in the 1960s while having its own modern edge. There's a little bit of CGI thrown in to incorporate some of that great hybrid animation at times, and I just need to see more of it right now. This sequence is so beautiful and charming, and I so hope that Disney decides to focus on more fully fledged animation features in this style in the future. It would be incredible. To wrap up, Mary Poppins Returns is beautifully directed by Rob Marshall, who steers absolutely clear of leaving his mark on the Poppins legacy by making this his own film, and instead creates an organic and wholly welcome extension of the original. A movie which completely captures the soul of Walt Disney, keeps you smiling from beginning to end, and allows you to shed tears of nostalgic joy over and over. I'm glad to say that this is a brilliant sequel and a wonderful return to the old Cherry Tree Lane that we all know and love. Yes, it does tend to play on the incredibly safe side overall, and as an individual movie it does have a few flaws and ups and downs, and I'm actually not too sure how well it would be received if it wasn't actually a remake but a wholly original movie. Regardless, there is nothing here that overly hurt my experience of the movie, but small things like a few lackluster musical numbers and a plot that could have been given a little bit more strength do hold me back from giving it a perfect score. I did love Mary Poppins Returns just the right amount. It didn't surprise me and gave me pretty much everything I was expecting going in. No more, no less. I'm happy to reward the movie an easy 4.5 out of 5 and cannot wait to watch it all over again. And at that, it is over to you guys. How did you feel about Mary Poppins Returns if you've seen it? And if you haven't, how are you feeling going in? Fire away in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. If this is your first time viewing one of my videos, you like what you've seen, you'd like to see more like this in the future, then please don't forget to hit that big old subscribe button up on your screen right now, and also hit that like button down below if you're feeling extra generous. Also, don't forget to check out my many social media accounts, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a wonderful day.